This is, I think, a subject of fascination to everybody who listens to you, and certainly to me. Whenever I've talked to you, I can't help but ask you if you believe in God. And I've always felt that I was being kind of cruel, like a guy shooting at somebody's feet, to make them dance around. But
Jordan Peterson is currently the most influential advocate of Christianity. I've been shocked by the amount of influence he has, because by all reasonable standards, Jordan Peterson is not a Christian. It's pretty hard to be a Christian if you don't believe in the divinity of Jesus Christ. So yes, let's see Jordan dance.
Well, the first answer would be, it depends on what you mean by Jesus.
A historical human being that existed
in a body. And
in a body.
In a body. And it was a physical body, and then it was on earth.
Yes. That it was on earth, and that was literally it came back to life after death.
I would say that at the moment I'm agnostic about that issue.
But someone once asked you whether you thought Jesus was literally resurrected, and you said it would take me 40 hours to answer that question. Okay, that's the kind of thing I'm responding to here. You don't need to do that if you have a clear-cut answer to that question.
I don't have a clear-cut answer to that question. And if you don't... It isn't obvious in the biblical account that Christ was literally resurrected. So it's not simple. This is not simple. I said it would take me 40 hours to answer the question. I didn't say that he was.
Okay, how's this for an answer? Almost certainly not. What's wrong with that answer?
It's a fine answer, and people have been giving that answer for a very long period of time, but the idea doesn't seem to go away.
Well, do you believe that Jesus rose again from the dead? Literally.
I cannot answer that question.
Well, then you might ask yourself, well, what do you mean by transcendent death? Well, in the case of Christ, let's assume he was a historical figure for the time being. Is his resurrection real? Well, his spirit lives on. That's certainly the case. Well, let's imagine that a spirit is a pattern of being. And we know that patterns can exist, patterns can be transmitted across multiple substrates, right? Vinyl, electronic impulses, air, vibrations in your ear, neurological patterns, dance. It's all the translation of what you might describe as a spirit, right? It's that pattern. It's independent of its material substrate. Well, is that an answer to the question? Did his body resurrect? I don't know.
I can feel the discomfort caused by his cognitive dissonance. He wants to believe it so badly. He may not be a Christian, but hey, at least he's not an atheist, right?
So then the question came to me, do I believe in God? And I don't like that question.
Jordan, I've actually heard you ask this question a number of times, and I don't think I've ever heard you give a definitive answer.
Yeah, I don't like the question.
Yeah. How come?
Well, I don't know exactly. I think part of it
is too personal?
Yeah, I think it's private. Hypotheses. One was, it's none of your damn business. That's the first one. So it's like a privacy issue. Like it seemed to me to be a question that was too private to be answered properly. And so, and you could consider that a cop-out, and maybe it is. And then another one was, well, what do you mean by believe? So people often ask me, do you believe in God? Which I don't like that question. First of all, it's an attempt to box me in a sense. But I'm not willing to place myself conveniently in a box. And so I'm going to leave it at that.
Fair enough.
I mean, I've been accused of, wiggling out of this answer continually. And I mean, I have to take refuge in some sense in my own ignorance.
Jordan dances around the question every time and induces confusion by not using the common definitions. Watch how he defines the word God and ask yourself, is this what most people mean when they use the word God?
What is the God that you act as though he, she, it exists. Like, what do you mean by God?
Okay. God is how we imaginatively and collectively represent the existence and action of consciousness across time, as the most real aspects of existence manifest themselves across the longest of time frames, but are not necessarily apprehensible as objects in the here and now. God is what calls and what responds in the eternal call to adventure. God is the voice of conscience. God is the source of judgment and mercy and guilt. God is the future to which we make sacrifices, and something akin to the transcendental repository of reputation. God is the highest value in the hierarchy of values. That's another way of looking at it. God is that which eternally dies and is reborn in the pursuit of higher being and truth. That's a fundamental element of hero mythology. Here's a cool one if you're an evolutionary biologist. God is that which selects among men in the eternal hierarchy of men. And the operation of that process across long expanses of time looks to me like it's codified in something like the notion of God the Father.
So I was not hearing in that list of attributes a God who could care if anyone masturbated. I'm not hearing a God, a personal God who can possibly hear anyone's prayers, much less answer them. To call that thing God is fine. That's a God I have no problem with, right? But that's not how most people most of the time are using the word. And there's something misleading about that. And that worries me.
Yeah. Jordan is negligently not drawing distinctions between his metaphorical religious beliefs and the beliefs of most true believers. Jordan is not convinced of a belief in Jesus. He's also not convinced of a belief in God. Using the definition of atheism that I use, a lack of belief in God, or to not be convinced by any of the current religions, Jordan Peterson is an atheist. That's all I've got. I'm Forrest, the Latter-day Skeptic. Thank you for watching.